From the screenshots that got channel banned to the return of the Auditore da Firenze family, it looks like the leaks from Assassin's Creed Hexe are never ending. Ubisoft will have a difficult task trying to prove that they are still capable of creating stories that stay in people's memories. This is the first Assassin's Creed in a long time that I'm looking at with hope instead of pity. We'll go through all the leaks and interesting details in this material, so sit back and enjoy watching. The Assassin's Creed series hasn't had it easy lately, just like all of Ubisoft. Despite fairly good sales results, many people criticize the recent games for boring, repetitive gameplay on a massive map where every quest felt like ticking off another checkbox, instead of kind of entertainment people would expect. On top of that, Ubisoft focused more on RPG elements, forgetting the identity of its own brand, which should be based on assassination and stealth. It's literally in the name. And even when they finally decided to return to the roots with Assassin's Creed Mirage, I dropped the game after a few hours because it lacked any ambition or engaging story. And just when I had as much hope left for the future of this series as a guy whose wife gets texted by the pizza place for the 13th time today, I saw this. We are moving to Würzburg in the first half of the 17th century, a city where 30% of the population was wiped out by their own neighbors in the name of religious hysteria. It's a historical documented nightmare, and it will become the setting for the darkest and possibly most groundbreaking Assassin's Creed game yet, under the working title Hexe. If the leaks turn out to be true, we can prepare for something completely fresh and new that will be nothing like the 100-hour RPG grind the previous entries got us used to. The foundation of the world we'll be moving through will be paranoia and religious hysteria, while not only women but also men and children will burn at the stakes. Recently, one of the leakers on Twitter shared a screenshot from the upcoming game, after which his account very quickly got taken down. So just to be safe, I won't show it either, even though it's literally the first search when you search for AC Hexe screenshot in Google. The image shows our protagonist crouch on a tree branch, looking like a slim woman surrounded by the dark woods. We already know from the game's reveal trailer. She has a blade on her hand that looks more like a machete than a hidden blade, which might suggest she's from Krakow. Our protagonist, because yes, we'll be playing as a woman, originally had the working name Elsa. I guess she just couldn't let it go. Now we know that her full name will be Annika Adler. This is actually a really cool reference to Sherlock, to previous games, where Altair literally means flying eagle in Arabic. Ezio also means eagle, this time in Italian. So you can probably guess what Annika means in German. Exactly. Merciful. What? Meanwhile, Adler means eagle, and that you failed German class. Just that alone is already a great setup for the story of Assassin's Creed Hexe. Because Annika Adler, the merciful eagle, will be thrown into the middle of a horrific city consumed by chaos, trying to save both the city itself and the people living in it at all costs. It completely changes the narrative dynamic, and if it's written well, the protagonist could actually stay in players' memories. Because they can portray her as a strong, independent woman who defeats hordes of enemies like the Neil Cuckman loves to do, and in that case reviewers will give it 8 out of 10, players will once again trash it for being another safe piece of Ubisoft, and everyone will move on like usual. But they could also approach the story differently. For example, and hear me out, by taking inspiration from how Spider-Man was written. One of his official superpowers is that he constantly gets beaten down, but always gets back up and keeps fighting. 7th century Würzburg is a perfect setting for a strong female protagonist, but not a physically overpowered killing machine. Instead, a mentally strong woman who has to face death and still remain a human, refusing to let the world around her extinguish the mercy hidden in her name. Unfortunately, knowing Ubisoft, we should probably expect none of that potential to actually be realized. A shame. A huge shame. I really hope that the next rumor gets handled better than the simple fanservice, because in Assassin's Creed Hexe, our protagonist's guide is supposedly going to be none other than Ezio Auditore da Firenze himself. He should obviously be long dead by now, but apparently this is explained through ISU technology, memory disks, or projections. If I remember correctly, in Assassin's Creed 2 Minerva was even capable to speak directly to Desmond, so basically the player. And do you know why this communication is supposedly possible? Spoiler warning, because Annika is meant to be a descendant of Claudia Auditore, Ezio's sister. We even have sample dialogue between the two. Annika says, "That white hood, it's like the one in my mother's drawings." And then Ezio says, "She wanted you to have a life." There's a few more quotes. "They call me a witch. They want to burn me for what I can do, for what I know." And also from Ezio, "Come, leap with me, one last time for an old man." And "They always fear what they cannot control. They called us demons once too. But remember, Elsa, nulla è reale, tutto è lecito. Requiescat in pace, bitch." That sounded like the boy's character. We can debate whether bringing Ezio back from the grave is just a cheap fan service or if it actually makes narrative sense. Didn't even realize it before, but the idea of Ezio's spirit acting as someone's mentor actually works for me. The creator's motivation behind it even sounds believable, way more believable than turning Yasuke into a samurai, for example. And when it comes to original characters, the game will also feature a second mentor we meet in Würzburg named Wolfgang. He'll be a man shaped by this hell, brutal, violent, and willing to break the Brotherhood's rules. Now, this part is just my guess, but for years we've been playing huge Assassin's Creed RPGs where we slaughter thousands of enemies like some kind of Punisher. What if Ezio appears here specifically to remind us, the player, what Assassin's Creed actually was supposed to be? And what the series lost along the way. If you're in the 10% of people who get to this point, thanks a lot for watching. The world of Hexe will include not only the densely built city of Würzburg, but also forested areas outside of it. Ubisoft once again decided to redesign parkour so it becomes more skill-based instead of automatic like in the RPG's era games. Something similar to Mirage, except this time there will be also forest traversal. Back in Assassin's Creed 3 I loved jumping between branches and trees, and Hexe will apparently bring that back, especially since we'll be able to unlock a skill called 3-to-3 branch jumping. I sincerely hope NPC AI will also be written better than in the previous games, which is suggested by dialogue lines like "Form a circle, don't let her disappear," or "Check the shadows, she couldn't have gone far." But remember, we'll be moving through a world driven by paranoia, so hiding won't be that easy. You know, if you do something suspicious, NPCs will raise the alarm much faster, call the guards and so on. All those gadgets, alchemy, medicine, a panic crowd could quickly mistake them for magic or even believe that it is magic, which explains Annika's earlier quote about being called a witch. After all, in Florence a sulfur smoke bomb was normal, but in Würzburg sulfur could already be associated with making a pact with the devil. Unfortunately, even the road toward releasing this game seems like a road through hell itself. Within just a few months, the project lost two lead directors, Clint Hawking, a guy who really understood stealth games, and shortly after him, Benoit Richer. This is exactly the situation I talked about when discussing the Forza Horizon leaks. Experienced developers leave the studio and get replaced by people who know very little about the project's specific problems and design philosophy, and the final product always suffers because of it. Thankfully, the project ended up in the hands of the guy who directed Black Flag, so there is still some hope left. Especially since after negative feedback from fans, he removed magical elements from the game, which I think was a very good decision. Apparently we were supposed to be able to possess a cat and scout with it, which is such a stupid idea for Assassin's Creed game that I refuse to believe it made it past the brainstorming phase. Because yes, even in a world with fantastical elements like pieces of Eden and genetic memory, I still believe the world itself has to remain heavily grounded in reality. Otherwise, just turn it into another generic fantasy game, gaming websites will pat you on the back and your stock prices will drop again. But even here there were cuts. During development, 50 developers were removed from Hexe. In my opinion, Europe is the perfect setting for a new Assassin's Creed. The only thing that might be even better would be probably setting it up in Poland during Second World War, but I don't think that they like Polish people so much. Hexe sounds like everything I would want from the Assassin's Creed series in order to believe in its world and this franchise once again. We could get a genuinely interesting story focused on paranoia and on what it means to remain human. If Ubisoft doesn't screw it up, we could end up with something on the level of Black Flag. But of course, Ubisoft will always be Ubisoft, so I'm approaching all these rumors with caution. I can honestly believe that a story improvised on the spot by some random fan could end up being more interesting than whatever this French company ultimately delivers. For now, all we can do is wait for official information, so I'm curious what you think about adding Ezio to the game. And as always, the comments are yours and the likes are mine, so leave one under this video and I will see you in the next one. Until then, take care.